Welcome everyone. Today we will be talking about impact evaluation. For this particular video, I have just taken a case study of a government initiative on agriculture, interventions on agriculture per se. For you to understand, now, this is universally applicable around the globe altogether. So let us understand what is impact evaluation as far as project management would be concerning around it. So agenda is simple and straightforward. We need to understand the evaluation pattern, the monitoring pattern. How do we do it? Why do we do it? Do we require reference factors? If there are any methods of constructing a reference factors per se, and how do we select them? And when is the opportune time to understand an impact? Understand or probably undertake an evaluation per se, and that is what the agenda for this particular video will all be talking about it. Yes, we are talking about monitoring and impact evaluation. Why do we impact evaluation? Why do we need a comparison group? Methods of constructing the comparison group, when to do an impact evaluation thereby. So let us understand how do we say so. We have been talking around in my previous videos also. If you have followed it out, it right starts at the bottom of the pyramid with the inputs, which might be money, material, manpower, or whatever we are looking into it, which actually goes into transfer into an activities, probably that gives an output. Outputs are goods and services that the company, the project, the initiative actually works for. So it can be anything. This particular example we have been talking around it would be agriculture. Right now, what you're seeing on the slide is for just having a hospital as a project. If you want to look into it, so impact what inputs were financial and physical resources in terms of primary healthcare, goods were number of nurses, availability of medicines, and things like that. So, what does this input with activities comes gives us output? What does output actually translates into? It translates into outcomes. It translates into a statutory mandatory freezing of behaviors in terms of, let's say, if we want to have quantified it, number of children been vaccinated, probably persons be covered within the 5 kilometer range. What is the population that we can be servicing around it? So that's the outcome that we go around it. And definitely, for every input there is an output, for every output there's an outcome, and for every outcome is what we are going to study in this particular video. Impact is the effect on the living standard. Impact is on the longevity of the population. Impact is the decline of the mortality rate. Impact can be anything and everything with related to some or certain diseases per se. So that is what we will be talking about it. Impact. How do we evaluate impact, and why impact evaluation is so necessary? So yes, we'll talk about it. Inputs is to output, output is to outcomes, and outcome relates to impact thereby. So essentially, one leads to another. It's a stepping stone which goes around it. Remember, the very first stone is yourself. You as a man, you as a human being, you as a part of a community, as a part of a society. Then comes your resources in terms of money and material that goes around it, which gives us the outputs, which gives us the understanding or expectation of the requirements of the society, and probably that gives us a profound impact, wherein there is a statutory upgradation of living standard, probably a change in the behaviors that comes around it. So there's definitely difficult to show the causality out here. Now let us understand the impact evaluation. Many names, for example, Rossi call it impact assessment. So we need to understand the concept. Is it an assessment or is it an evaluation? Impact is the difference between outcome with the program and without it. Now this is where I am trying to play the advocate, the counterfactual methods. As a devil's advocate, if probably internet was there, we are having this session, right? You are watching it at your convenience, this particular video. I am probably recording this particular video at my convenience. But let us say there is no internet. As a devil's advocate, will this teaching learning process will be actually take place? Probably no. So as a devil's advocate or counterfactualism is one way to evaluate impact. The goal of impact evaluation is to measure those differences in a way that can attribute to the difference of the program and probably only on the program, as I am saying about this video. So does it matters? We want to know if a program has an impact. Probably, definitely, yes, we are looking forward to it. So if it matters, we need to understand whether the policies are good enough. We need to understand the justification for the expenditures that we are undertaking. Definitely, there is and manpower expenditure. There is probably other associated expenditure that comes around it. But does why am I making this video and why are you watching this video? Probably it aids to your career building. So can it be scaled up or not? Did it work? Meta-analysis, learning from others with low cost data, understand the net benefits of the program, understand the distribution of gains and losses as the case might be. So what do we need? The difference in outcome with program versus without the program. So this particular session is possible with the help of net, with the help of technology. But if this internet or this technology is not available, would it be possible to conduct this session or hold this or record this video for the same unit of analysis on an individual level? So problem is individual only have one existence. Hence, we have a problem of missing a counterfactual, the devil's advocate, a problem of missing data as the case might be. So why not compare individuals before and after that reflexive action? This is what I have been trying to impress upon my audiences. You are not sure about it. If what you are doing right now was possible, let's say 50 years back, probably not. Or 100 years back, probably no. Probably 300 years back was impossible to think about it of what actually you are doing. And I'm not talking about this particular video, this particular teaching learning process, probably the lifestyle that you are going in. 300 years back, there was no electricity. There would have been no air conditioning. Forget air conditioning, there would have been no fans. Forget fans, you don't have a proper housing concepts altogether. So will it be going around? So please understand the rest of the world moves on. And if you are not sure of what has caused that program or what by the rest of the world, we need to have a control group. We need to have a comparison group that will allow us to attribute the change in treatment groups to the program as in the reason with causality as the case might be. So comparison group issues, two central problem. Programs are targeted. Program areas will differ in observable, unobservable ways precisely because the program intended this. Individual participation is voluntary, definitely yes. Participation will differ from non-participants in observable and unobservable ways. Hence, a comparison of participants and arbitrary groups of non-participants can lead to a heavily biased result, and that is exactly that what we are looking forward to. Let me give you an example of providing fertilizers to farmers. The interventions, probably yes. Providing fertilizers to farmers in poorer regions, definitely. And you can name any country for that matter. So I'm just calling it a region A. So program targets poor areas. Farmers will have to enroll for the local extension to receive the fertilizer, started in way back 2022 and probably ends in 2014. And if we have the data, you will see the farmers in the poor region and another region for both the years, an advanced place and a developing place. We will observe that farmers who provide fertilizers to have a decrease in yield from 2022 to 2024. So there is a decrease in yield altogether as far as the agriculture output is concerned. So the question is, did this program work? Now, probably people might say, no, it did not work because there was a differences in the yield. In fact, it went down. But why should you take it with a pinch of salt? Because if you stick it further, you will see that probably there was a national drought. Probably that was the reason why the yield fell down. So on the hindsight, was this a fair impact assessment or impact evaluation? So when we compare the farmers in program region to those of another region, we find that our treatment of farmer have a larger decline than those in region B. So this program had a negative impact, but was it because of the fertilizer or otherwise? So not necessarily. Farmers in region B has a better quality soil. Probably you can, nobody recommended it, nobody understood it, but everybody felt it. And if you dig it further, we were studying, remember, we were studying about the project of just providing fertilizer. But in region B, the land was already fertile. People were already doing good. They were already impacting the fertilizer there, utilizing the fertilizer there. And in region A, despite giving fertilizer subsidized rate, but the suitable climate was not there. The atmosphere was not favorable for agricultural produce. As a result, there was a differences in the yield. So farmers in other regions have more irrigation, which is key in drought areas, as has been observed. So now let us compare that of farmers in region A. When we compare treatment with their neighbors, we think the soil is more or less the same, which is absolutely inaccurate and not fair at all. Let's say when we observe the treatment farmer yields decline by less than comparison farmer, did this program work? Again, the answer is not necessarily. Farmers who went to register with the program may have more ability. This could manage their drought. They could probably manage the drought better. They could probably irrigate their fields, but the fertilizer was irrelevant and individual unobservable. So you see, what I'm trying to impress upon you people is there might be a project which had a good intention and probably has been executed effectively, but the overall outcome is not satisfactory, and there are other reasons for it apart from the main concern that you have undertaken the project. So let's say we observe that there's no difference in between the two groups. Did the program not work? Not necessary. When what little rain that has caused the farmers to run off the neighbor's field, spillovers, contamination, as the case might be. Comparison group. In the end, with this naive comparison, and this was seriously naive comparison, we cannot tell if the program had a positive impact or a negative impact or any other impact in the first place. We need a comparison group. Now, this is where we said till now I was trying to impress you with this particular video and the technology slash internet. But now I'm trying to tell what if it is happening with every other factors remaining constant. So we require a comparison group where all the factors are more or less constant. That is identical in observable and unobservable dimension as possible to those receiving the programs. And a comparison group that will not receive the spillover benefits as the case might be. How to construct a comparison group, building the counterfactual, randomizations, matching, differences in differences, instrumental variables, regression discontinuity. Now, these are just a comparison group that we can go around it. We need to build those things time and again as on when on basis. So let us start with randomization. Now, individual communities, firms probably are assigned randomly without any biasness. Counterfactual, the devil's advocate, I'm trying to tell it out, of randomized outgroup, that there are plentiful of advantages. Let's say it might address the gold standard, the most benchmark standard in terms of design, where selection biasness is absolutely zero. And we probably might come to a relevant impact evaluation. So, perceived as a fair process of allocation with a limited resources, yes, definitely we are not addressing or studying the whole population, but a cluster, but a sample, but a random sample about it, which reflects the characteristics of the whole population, nevertheless. So, it might actually cost me less. But then there are disadvantages. Let's say there might be ethical constraint. People might have biasness coming around it. There might be political constraint. There might be internal validity issues, exogenity. People might not comply with the assignments, selective non-compliance, unable to estimate entry point, entry effect, what, when, how is what the question is all about it. External validates generalizations usually run controlled experiment on pilot, small scale, difficult to extrapolate the result to a larger population. Randomization in our example is simple answer is randomized farmers with a community to receive fertilizer. There are plentiful of potential problems. What are they? They might run off in terms of contamination, in terms of disease spread in the crops. So for this, we need to take proper precautions, take up what we are facing as an issue. So matching, After randomization is matching participant with non-participant from a larger survey. The devil's advocate or the counterfactual is matched comparison group. Each program participant is paired with one and another. With more than one person, with more than one participant, that are similarly based on observable characteristic. Assumes that conditional on the sets of observable, there are no selection bias and observe heterogeneity. When the set of variables to match is large, often match on a summary statistic, the probability of participation is a function of observables, the propensity stores as we call about it. Advantages, yes, it has it because it does not require randomization nor a baseline pre-intervention data. There are plentiful of disadvantages. Strong identification assumption requires very good quality data, needs to control for all factors that influences program placement, requires significantly large sample size to generate comparison groups as on when on basis. Now, what we are looking into matching in our example? Using statistical technique, we match a group of non-participant with participant using variables like gender, household size, education, experiences, land size, rainfall to control for droughts, irrigation, as many observable characteristics not affected by the fertilizer. Remember that impact of fertilizer to the farmer for crop production. And we are looking to match in our example exact household, exact education, exact land size for rainfall to control for drought vis-a-vis irrigation for as many as observable factors. If we can match those two scenarios, there would be a number of outcomes that comes up. Let's say with scenario one, and then we'll discuss scenario two also. We show up afterwards. We can only match within region, mind you, those who got fertilizer and those who did not, because there was issues with it. So what is the issue? Problem is select on an expected gains or an ability as which is unobservable. Absolutely, yes. You are selecting on an expected gains. And probably you do not understand the reasons why it has got unexpected gains. Let's say scenario two, the program is allocated based on historical crop choices and land sizes, something which has been consistent over a period of time. We show up afterwards and match those eligible in region A with those in region B. Problems are the same as an issues as an individual unobservables, but lessen because we compare the eligible to the potential problems. Now, now unobservable across region per se. Let's go to an extension of matching each one of them. Idea is to compare those just about to get an intervention with those getting it now. Assumption, the stopping point of intervention does not separate two fundamental different population. Example, extending the irrigation network thereby. Differences, observation over time, compare observed changes in the outcomes. For a sample of participants and non-participant, if I may say so, identification assumption, the selection biasness is time invariant. Parallel trends in the absence of program. Counterfactual changes. The counterfactual is just the opposite. Changes over a period of time for non-participants. The constraints are plentiful, requires at least two cross-sectional data to remember which are observable and which are unobservable, which are matching, which are not matching. Please understand these things, which are randomized and which are probably selective. Requires at least two cross sections of data, pre-program, post-program, participants and non-participant need to think about the evaluation ex ante. Ex ante is after the event and before the event. Can be principally combined with matching to just pre-treatment as the case might be. Let us look at the differences thereby in our example. So we might have an arbitrary comparison group, we might have match differences in differences and randomized differences in differences per se. These are the orders of more problem and less problem. Think about this as we look at it in graphically. Now, if you look out here, simple and straightforward. Now, I just wanted to go around here. We see a two parallel lines, right? If you go around, if you can see this thing, you will be able to see what I'm trying to talk to you. This is the two parallel line that comes around here. Sorry. Let me draw a two parallel lines, as in the blue line that we talk about it, and as this line. If we are changing the impact, if everything goes on a similar scale, as long as it is additive, you remember, and time invariant. This is what we are trying to go around it. As long it is additive, as long it is time invariant. So if we start at point A, we start end up at point B. But if we start at A plus 1, we will end up at B plus 1. But if there is an intervention that fertilizers have been put in, probably we end up having B plus 3, not B plus 1. So A relates to B. Position A plus 1 will be position B plus 1. Remember, whether no interventions, no fertilizer been provided, but in case the for fertilizer has been provided, it becomes from A to B plus 3 as such. So there is a change in impact. But what happens if there are no interventions at all? Absolutely. Now, what do we go around it? If you look out here, there are two lines that comes around. The one which goes straight and the other which goes slightly on a horizontal line. This actually deteriorates, this position actually deteriorates over a period of time. But what happens with the impact improves, and improves by leaps and bounds. So this is what we want to go around here. If you are not going with the tempo, if you don't have a reference group, that it's that your performance will automatically fall per se. So see, with the lag of time and how it has been plotted over x-axis and y-axis thereby. Instrumental variables are identifiable variables that affect a participation in the program, but not on the outcomes. Let's say the conditional on participation, exclusion, restriction. The counterfactual, the causal effect is identified out of exogenous variables of the instrument. Advantages does not require the exogeneity assumptions of matching. Disadvantages, the estimates effect is local. Definitely, it identifies the effect of the program only for a subpopulation, those inducted to take the program by instrument, those who follow every alphabet of what has been issued to them, of whatever words, instructions have been issued to them. They follow it step by step. Probably that is what goes wrong. Therefore, different instruments identify different parameters, end up with different magnitude of estimated things. Now, this is why you need to understand every analysis will come up with different outcomes, and every outcome will be actually based on certain input which might be different altogether. All right. So on their own, they might stand very justifiable, but when you compare them, the results in between different instruments, probably you come up with divergence point of view. So validity of the instrument can be questioned, cannot be tested per se. It turns out that an outreach was done randomly, so the take or intake time of the farmers in the program are essentially randomized, and they actually face problems, and problems can be plentiful. It might be just an access to their field. It might be the roads that we're looking at it. But is it really a random if I want to go around it? The last point would be the regression, discontinuity design. Exploit the rule generating assignment into program given to the individual by only given threshold. Assume that discontinuity in participation and not in counterfactual outcomes. Counterfactual individual just below the cut who did not participate. Advantages we need to identify built in the program design. Deliver marginal gains from the program should be eligible for cutoff point. Disadvantages threshold has to be applied in practices. Individuals should not be able to manipulate the scores in the program to become eligible. Investment operations versus the adjustment versus the budgeted support. Project may be evaluated all, but unlikely to give uh, the right impact altogether. So please understand, try to pick up those sub components that might be of interest. Adjustment, budgetary support that we look into it. Building a strong monitoring and evaluation unit is very important to find out the impact, to find out the desired outcomes or outputs that comes around it. Evaluate policy reforms. It can be pilot policy, as I've said with the health issues, health example, or the agricultural issues, whether there's a change in tariff or charges or taxes that the government is levying. Anything economic is not equivalent, is not equal to, is not identical, is not same as impact evaluation. Remember, anything economy wide is not impact evaluation. Prioritizing of impact evaluation. Remember, impact evaluation is neither cheap and possible prioritization criteria. Do not know if the policy is effective. Let's say conditional cash transfer. Politics. Let's say an example might be any welfare program or workfare program that goes around here. It's a lot of money. Remember, point number 2 and 3 of not knowing in this context is very important and has impact. So, summing up, methods wise, no clear gold standards in reality. There is nothing called benchmark. Remember, what works in region A, country A, might not work in region B, country B. So do what works best in the context. Watch for the unobservable, which are impacting the project. Unobservable criteria which you have not given due consideration. And do not forget the observable, because that's plentiful in front of your eyes and everybody will be able to judge it. Be flexible, be creative, use the context. Impact evaluation requires good monitoring, and monitoring will only help you to understand the effect size. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video till the very end.